Hey everyone! This week's First Chapter Friday is Heroes by Alan Gratz. So he is one of the most popular authors in the library. This book is divided into parts and it also has super fast-paced quick chapters. So if you are into either of that, be sure to come check it out. Part 1, before. Chapter 1, The Arsenal of Democracy, Saturday, December 6th, 1941. It's an attack, Stanley cried. Enemy airplanes, dozens of them coming in low over the water. They're shooting machine guns, I added, turning in my seat, dropping torpedoes. Fire, explosions, shrapnel everywhere, Stanley said. The water around us was a sparkling mirror, the sky bright blue without a cloud or a plane in sight. My best friend, Stanley Summers, and I were sailing across Pearl Harbor in our little aluminum motorboat, headed home from baseball practice. Stanley was steering, and I was sitting facing him. We were talking out a story idea for the superhero we are creating together. I was the writer. Stanley was the illustrator. It was going to be the greatest comic book ever. And flying up to meet them, I went on, is Warhawk, protector of the innocent, guardian of freedom. He smashes one plane with his fist and uses his heat vision to destroy another. Bullets ping off his chest. Wait, Frank, Stanley cut in. Warhawk has too many superpowers. I paused, confused. What do you mean? I asked. He's got as many powers as Superman. Superman's a cheat, Stanley said. He's super strong and super fast. He can fly, he has x-ray vision and super hearing and super breath. It's boring. He shook his head. Our character should have one superpower, like how Captain America has super strength or the Flash has super speed. I leaned forward in my seat. Oh, come on, I said. You're telling me you'd rather be Captain America than Superman? Heck yeah, Stanley said. He took his hand off the tiller and gave me a crisp salute. Stars and stripes, baby. Wouldn't it be amazing to get the super soldier serum? I wanted to say yes, but Steve Rogers hadn't known what that super soldier serum was going to do to him before he took it. And what if it killed him? Or what if it turned him into a monster? I wouldn't have taken that risk. Not even for the chance to be Captain America. But I wasn't going to admit that to Stanley. I held tight to the sides of the boat as Stanley steered us forward toward Ford Island. A light breeze wafted the smell of pineapple and sugarcane across the bay, and the palm trees along the shore swayed. Somewhere, a radio played the soft, plinky sounds of Hawaiian ukulele music. In some ways, it felt like someone had already slipped me the super soldier serum. I'd grown 12 inches in the last year, and now, at 13 years old, I was taller than my mom. I was like one of those Charles Atlas ads you saw on the back of comics. Send in for this free book and go from scrawny runt to Greek god in just 3 months. Only I didn't feel like a Greek god. I was always tripping over my own big feet, and I felt clumsy and awkward in my new body. Stanley was the opposite. He was comfortable in his skin, with a casual confidence that I tried to copy but could never get right, like his clothes. While I wore a t-shirt and rolled up jeans like most boys our age, Stanley stood out in his white shorts and oversized aloha shirt with bright red flowers. He did his own thing and didn't worry what anybody thought about him. Stanley and I looked different in other ways, too. I was white, with skin that turned pink from sunburn and blue eyes and wavy light brown hair. Stanley was a cross between his Japanese-American mom and his white dad, with tan skin and dark brown eyes and straight black hair. But we were brothers, forever and always, thanks to our love of comic books. How sold are you on the name Warhawk? Stanley asked, pulling me out of my thoughts. Not particularly, I said. We'd taken his name from a type of fighter plane that my dad flew in the Navy, but I'd never loved it. It made our hero sound like he was always looking for a fight. You got other ideas? I asked Stanley. No, he said, you're the writer. I was hoping you had something. I thought about it as I looked out across the water. Ringing Pearl Harbor like stone sentinels were the steel gray battleships and cruisers and destroyers that made up the U.S. Pacific Fleet, all enjoying a lazy Saturday afternoon at port. The big ships gave me an idea. I turned toward Stanley, feeling a rush of excitement. How about the arsenal of democracy? I said. It was something I'd heard President Roosevelt call the United States on the radio. There was a war happening overseas. Adolf Hitler, the evil leader of Nazi Germany, was trying to conquer all of Europe and maybe the whole world. Hitler had made a pact with Italy and Japan to form the Axis powers. Great Britain, Russia, China, and most of the other countries in the world, the Allies, were fighting against the Axis. But so far, America had stayed out of the war. We still wanted to help, so the US had become the arsenal of democracy, cranking out ships and planes and tanks and guns, all to loan to the Allies. I don't know, said Stanley. It's kind of wordy. Stanley's lack of enthusiasm took some of the wind out of my sails, but I wasn't ready to give up. It's like the Sentinel of Liberty, I argued, knowing how much Stanley loved Captain America's nickname, and we can call our character Arsenal for short. Okay, yeah, Stanley said, smiling as he came around, and maybe he uses a shield just like Cap, something like this. Stanley pulled a pencil and paper from his pocket and started sketching, which was a bad idea because he was the one driving the boat. We're going to go ahead and do chapter 2 as well. Near miss. Stanley, I cried, my voice so shrill it cracked. Stanley, steer the boat. Stanley got up, moved to the middle seat, and bent over his piece of paper. You steer, he said, intent on his drawing. I gulped. Stand up in a moving boat? Cross the middle seat? Steer? I had never steered. Without anybody to guide it, our boat swung slowly to the left, heading straight for the USS Nevada, a 580-foot-long, 30,000-pound battleship. That was not good, because when big boats hit little boats, big boats always win. I fought to release my death grip on the sides of our boat and stood quickly before I did something stupid like faint. I lurched over the middle seat like Frankenstein's monster and practically fell onto the seat at the rear of the boat. I almost went over backward into the water, but at the last second, I managed to grab hold of the tiller on the outboard motor. The boat swung wildly as I pulled myself back up and swerved us toward the dock on Ford Island. Holy cats, Frank, Stanley said. He held his pencil up off the paper until the boat stopped rocking. Are you okay? Great, I lied. Just lost my balance for a second. Stanley nodded and went back to drawing. I stared straight ahead, squeezing the handle on the tiller so hard my knuckles went white. I had to remind myself to breathe. How could Stanley do something like that to me? But then, Stanley didn't know the truth about me. The secret I'd carefully kept hidden since I'd first arrived in Hawaii over a year ago. The one thing I was desperate to not let anybody know. So from here, the novel, of course, continues on to talk about what happens the day of Pearl Harbor. Our main characters, of course, get caught up in that because they happen to be right there. So lots of action, lots of adventure. Come by the library and check out Heroes by Alan Gratz.